Good morning. I am Steve Weber. Welcome to the American Gumption Morning Show. We are broadcasting show number 185. It's Friday, June the 4th. So just time is marching by. I got an email this morning from a friend and one of her monthly broadcasts, and she said, "Hey, it's June. Does it feel like this month is or this year is just whipping by?" And absolutely it does. Absolutely it does. So anyway, welcome to today's show. I've got Gwen Peterson joining us today, and she is the founder of Spiritual Communities Network. And she was a guest about a month ago, and we talked specifically about the Spiritual Communities Network. And today we're going to talk about her brand, the thing that really got her started, and then 10 to 15 years into that journey, Spiritual Communities Network started. So we're going to talk about Insights and Illuminations, insightsandilluminations.com, and how she is working with the people that she works with, in addition to all the folks that she works with through the Spiritual Communities Network. So that'll be coming up in just a couple of minutes after the monologue. And today's monologue is titled, "What's My Destiny?" So anybody who's been a regular follower of the show knows that this is going to be a Forrest Gump episode, because this is like "What's my destiny" is like one of the lines that Forrest utters to Mama on her deathbed. So I'll get into that and share that with you in just a second. So okay, alrighty. Like I said, it's the last day of the week here. Now here's the plan for next week. I don't have any guests scheduled. I've been doing some behind the scenes things, so I may end up just doing a couple of monologues. I'll probably end up with a couple of guests, but I don't have anybody specific that I can announce at this point, and that's okay, because I've been, like I said, I've been working behind the scenes, doing a little bit of revamping the websites and focus and all of that kind of stuff. And it's coming up on 1 year. July 7th will be 1 year when I launched American Gumption website. So my intention is to kind of refocus things, revamp. So this month, June, I'll be doing some behind the scenes things to probably reveal a new version of the website in the next, certainly within the next month. We'll say by early July will be definite. So, but might happen even before then. So anyway, that's, I may just end up doing some monologue shows in which I talk about some of the different details, but I'll probably have a few guests too. So that's what's happening. All right. So now let's go ahead and shift gears and get into the monologue. And as I said, it's called What's My Destiny? And you'll remember that line when Mama is on her deathbed, and Forrest, asks her pleading way, "Mama, what's my destiny?" And so anyway, that's what we're going to share with you. So let's see here. There we go. I'm going to take that off, and let's go ahead and jump right into this. So yes, what is my destiny? So anybody who's a fan of the movie will certainly remember this scene. It had started at the scene right before Forrest is sitting in Mama's bedroom, where is ill. He's on his shrimp boat out in the Gulf of Mexico, and he gets a message that says Mama's sick, and you might remember he just jumps off the side of the boat and presumably swims the shore. And the next thing we see him running with the suitcase. It never gets revealed how he ended up getting the suitcase, after he got back to land and started running. But he comes up and he runs up the driveway and into the house and up the steps, and the doctor's there, and Mama looks like she's fine, but she's in bed. And he says, "What's the matter, Mama?" And she says, "Oh, I'm dying. She goes, "Why are you dying?" And dying is just a part of life. And, it's a quiet moment. It's a moment when there's a mother and a son, and, he doesn't want to say goodbye. And yet that's really what's going to end up happening. And so Mama tells him not to worry. And goes into a little bit of a story. And she says, "I didn't know it, but I was destined to be your mama." And with that, Forrest said, "Oh, you did good." And here we see him listening intently. He's like listening to every word, because here it is, his mother. He's the one who raised him, and of course, he had gone off and had all his own experiences in college and in the armed services and playing ping pong and shrimping. And now here he is back, and he's saying goodbye. And Mama, said, I didn't know it, but I was destined to be your mama. And said, you did good. Well, she said, I did the best that I could, is what she ends up saying. And she goes on and she says, yeah, I happen to believe you make your own luck. You have to do the best with what God gave you. You make your own luck. You happen to do the best with you have to do the best with what God gave you. And it's really, it really kind of summarizes in my mind what the movie was all about, and how how we all, feel like we have a destiny, and yet, we do get to make our own luck, and we do have to do the best with what we have. At that point, Forrest, almost like the man child, like a little boy, pleadingly asks his mama, "What's my destiny? What's my destiny?" He wants to know. And this is kind of an interesting moment, because Mama doesn't say much of anything, like in terms of, well, you need to go do this, or you're going to go do that. She just tells him, you're going to have to figure it out yourself. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. I think it's really important that Mama didn't give any more information at that point in terms of like what he should do with his life, because ultimately we all we all get to figure it out for ourselves. That is our, that is our purpose, is to figure this out ourselves. And yeah, I mean, how do we figure it out? So Forrest wanted to know, just like he's that little boy, what's my destiny? And Mama says, you're going to have to figure it out for yourself. Well, when we're little kids, kids are always asking, what should I do this? And parents give the answer. And then ultimately kids become teenagers, and they don't want the advice, because they want to figure it out themselves. And that's the human spirit. That's the yearning. We're all here. We're all divine, reincarnated creatures back living a human experience, a 3D experience in time and space reality. And ultimately we're here to learn a lesson and to figure it out ourselves. So it was good advice that Mama gave in terms of just figuring it out for ourselves. Now, back in like, I would say it was roughly 2012, 13, 14, I was really going through that whole trying to figure it out myself. I had been the Forrest Gump impersonator for Bubba Gump for many years, and that had come to an end. And then I was like, now what do I do next? And I was like, what's my destiny? And I was asking that, and I was involved with different groups, and learning and getting ideas, and ultimately all of the answers that I got never really satisfied me. And I remember I read the book by Simon Sinek, Find Your Why, or Start with Why. I can't even remember what the original name of the book was, but it's about your why and your purpose. And I remember reading it, and it didn't help in the way that I was maybe hoping, or the way maybe some others had recommended that it might. And I think as I've reflected on it, why was that? What was going on in my own life at that time? And I was really going from being a thinker and a head-based person to more of a heart-based, in terms of finding my true soul's purpose, as opposed to what would be like might be a business purpose. I had been trying to take the experience that I had for 15 years with Bubba Gump, and translate that into a speaking business, and all that was working. But ultimately there was like kind of this empty, in my heart, or my soul purpose, in terms of I wasn't. And I remember I read Find Your Why, or Start with Why, whatever the name of that book was. I mean, he's got the two books and they're very similar. So it was one of those. And I just remember that I didn't get the answer that I was looking for. And as I'm thinking about it now, maybe it's because it was really more of a for a business audience. And I was like moving away from that. And I was moving more from that, like I said, from that head-based thinking to more of a heart or soul-based purpose, trying to find and satisfy that. So anyway, that's kind of my own version. But I'm going to repeat here the 3 lessons that Mama told Forrest. She said, make your own luck. Make your own luck. That's pretty good advice, right? That's kind of the law of attraction. We end up getting what we think about, what we focus on, what we put our intentions on. So we do get to make our own luck. We think of luck as something that just happens to us, but we actually have an option to make our own luck. And then the second piece of advice was do the best with what God gave you. And that's, we all have this divine purpose, the divine reason for being here, and we just have to do the best with what God gave us. And maybe it's really a matter of just finding that purpose and rediscovering it, because it's elusive. It's not easy to do. It takes a lot of effort to find that purpose. And then finally, the last piece that she gave Forrest was go figure it out for yourself. And it was a little bit blunt. And it was good advice, because Mama didn't have much time. She was on her deathbed. She couldn't tell Forrest, she was well past the point of giving advice, right? So she was giving advice, but she said, go out and figure it out yourself. Now that's a little harsh, right? What's my purpose? Go figure it out for yourself. Yeah. Now, fortunately, there's people like Gwen and many others in the Spiritual Communities Network who help people figure it out for themselves. But I'm guessing Gwen, and I'm guessing the other coaches and mentors in the Spiritual Communities Network, don't tell people what their purpose and their destiny is, but they do guide them and they do help them figure it out for yourself. So the blunt answer Mama gave was go figure it out for yourself. And then there's these people who are guides and coaches and mentors who help you figure it out for yourself. A little bit softer answer, a little more helpful in terms of what but Mama didn't have any time left, so that was the best she could do. All righty, well, that's it. We'll wrap up that portion of the program, and I think what we'll do is we will shift gears and we'll invite Gwen to come and join us. So, Gwen Peterson, are you there? Good morning. Whoops, you're muted.
I'm here.
All righty. Well, good. Well, welcome back. You were here a month ago. I'm glad you're joining us again.
Yeah, I don't get the happy music before I start, right?
Oh, that's right. We have yes, because we have rules here. The rules were that I get to read your bio and introduction, and then we play the first time guest welcoming song. And you've been a guest before, so no song. We can't start breaking rules just because Gwen joins us this time. But I can read your bio again, and I actually adjusted it a little bit to focus on today. So let's just do that. We'll start that, and then we'll get into helping people figure out their why and their purpose and their destiny in life. So Gwen Peterson is the founder of Spiritual Communities Network, and she's a mentor of Insights and Illuminations, insightsandilluminations.com. It's right down below us, scrolling along. Discover your soul, life purpose. That's sort of my little added title for this show, but insightsandilluminations.com is her brand. So it is Gwen's mission and joy to support both seekers and teachers of spiritual growth. Spiritual Communities Network offers its members a platform to promote their work. It's a matchmaker for those seeking spiritual help and those providing illumination or light for others. With insightsandilluminations.com, Gwen mentors those who are seeking. She provides tough love with a purpose to help individuals become the best version of themselves. She is a teacher of meditation and soul development and assists those who are ready to find fuller meaning in their lives. What's my destiny? All right, we'll give you some of that. So Gwen Peterson, welcome back to the American Gumption Morning Show. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Steve, for having me back. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, we've been we behind the scenes. We've also been getting to know each other in the last month since you've been here. So I'm grateful that you're joining us this morning, and this will be a fun conversation because it was tough for me trying to figure out what my sole purpose is, and in some ways I haven't. I still am figuring that out. But boy, when I think back to 7, 8, 9 years ago, I felt really lost in terms of what it was I was supposed to do. I knew I had some special purpose, but boy, it was elusive at that time. I could have used you back then. Where were you?
I'm sure it's still elusive.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't feel quite as quite as far off as it did. I mean, it was like felt like I was like wandering around in the dark with no flashlight. Now at least I feel like at least there's a little bit of.
Yeah, that's that journey from head to heart that you talked about. That elusiveness is, where do I go for the direction? And yeah, so yeah, you've worked on that. So that's why it doesn't feel as elusive. However, I'm going to be like Forrest's mom and give you the tough love, that you got to do it for yourself. Nobody can do it for you. You even touched on that too, that, when people come to us, for most spiritual teachers, asking for, their life's purpose, what's my soul's goal? If you're a really good practitioner in your work, you're going to say, you've got to do the work yourself. They can give you peeks into it, and they might be able to maybe guide you and point you in the right direction, like from heart, from head to heart. But, no one in good conscience can sit down and go, well, this is your destiny.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really quite amazing that the movie had that line in it. And I mean, I think that's why the movie, has endured and touched people's hearts the way it did, because it just touched on so many of different life's truths. And I guess that it was just, it's kind of one of those lightning in a bottle things where, screenwriters and people are constantly, like their job is to write screenplays and to make movies and do these different things. And why is it that every once in a while, like lightning in a bottle strikes and a particular movie can have so many important things? And that particular line, what's my destiny and what's my purpose, is the way I've been closing my keynotes for the last 10 years, because ultimately it's about people going out there and doing that work themselves and figuring out for themselves, because nobody will listen if you try to tell them exactly. Like if you try to spoon, like mothers tell kids, right? Here's is what you need to do. And at some point kids say, forget it, I ain't doing it. Just out of spite. So.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of funny too, because that is, people, when they do come to me, they'll be like, what's my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing? Or, all the big why questions. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And when you toss it back to them like that, where it's, you give, like you said, you're like the mom giving them advice, but then they're like, no, that's not what I wanted to hear. That's not helpful at all. And especially when it's, the tough love answer of, you got to figure it out yourself. And it is, and it's that journey, that spirituality is the journey from head to heart. I think I'm going to need to have this show recorded, and I need the content out of it.
Good. Well, we're gonna have a recording of it that you can use. Hey, so I have so from your website, and some of the questions that you ask people, or you ask because you really asked yourself, were where is my happiness, and why do I feel like I should be doing something? How do I know what I'm supposed to do? And then when you begin to answer those questions, where do I start? How do I start? And you listed those questions as a way of giving people like insight into like what you went through yourself, because it was like roughly 25 years ago when you began asking yourself those questions and having to answer them questions for yourself. And so, how did it start for you back? What was going on in your life 25 years ago when you went, okay, I got to start, I got to get down to, because you had been living life, X number of years up until then, but then you went, wait a minute, there's a deeper purpose. There's a deeper meaning. And what kind of triggered the initial need for you to answer those questions for yourself?
Good question. Yeah, it started when, I was playing by the rules. Okay. I was playing by the rules, got the high school education, graduated, went to college, graduated, got the job, making the money, got married, having the kid, have the dog, all the things that they tell you will make you happy and successful and accomplished and fulfilled, and all those wonderful words that we throw around. And I had all that, and I was just kind of not happy. I'm like, I'm just not happy. I don't understand why I'm not happy, because I've got all the stuff, so where's that hole, what's that gap, that void? I was feeling a void, so I started playing around with, spirituality, kind of delving a little bit more into it, about, what's going on. And, spirituality, the foundation is meditation.
Mm-hmm.
There is no getting around that one. I don't care how you try to scoot around it, look around it, crawl under it. You ultimately, it comes down to meditation. And it necessarily, I guess it doesn't need to be every single day. It depends where you're at, ultimately, if you're really wanting to do some deep heart searching, soul searching, purpose searching, if you feel that need to do that, then you're going to need to have a comparable meditation practice. Not everybody is supposed to be gurus. Not everybody's supposed to be energy healers. Where you're at is, you make your luck, right? So if you're in a good place and life is good and you feel great, you're good. You're golden. A little meditation here and there will keep you on track and keep moving you through. But if you're feeling that void, that tug in the middle of your heart, you're right in your center, that is your soul going, hey, you're not anywhere near where you need to be right now. Mm. And that becomes your guiding force, if you will. That's where you take that direction. And that's how you discover your destiny, if you will. And because you do have a destiny, you have a life experience that's going to play out, and you do have freedom, of choice. You do have will, and you can make it good or bad. You can enjoy it or not. And your soul will give you the direction on that to make it a more pleasurable journey, if you will, because we're all going to have stuff. A lot of times, I think people get in their heads that, oh, if I become spiritual, I will never have another problem in my life. And that is not what spirituality is about. Spirituality is about you finding a good place to move through the things that come up in your life. So yeah.
Did you have someone teaching you, or did you kind of figure it out for yourself? Because 25 years ago, it was a different landscape in terms of this. It was kind of hidden in the closet if it was going on at all. And now we're pretty much out in the open in terms of talking about these things. So how did you, that initial, initial beginning, how'd you get, how did you did you just stumble and by brute force figure this out?
Yeah. Simple answer would be yes.
Okay. All
I'm
right.
gonna I guess I'll date myself by saying yes. Back then, when I started exploring, well, what is all this about, and what's this thing that everybody talks about, meditation? Um, yeah, you walked into the bookstore. The only way you could find anything on spirituality or self-help or whatever you wanted to label it was in the back of the bookstore next to the bathroom, filed under Wicca.
Mm,
And there was only a handful of books. I don't even think it took up more than, this much space on
wow.
the shelf. And but it was populated with some really good teachers. And so I started with them. And I was fortunate enough too to be in the Detroit area. And there was a minister at Unity of Mourn, yeah. And Jack Boland, he was an amazing speaker, and he was an amazing inspirational speaker, if you will.
Mhm.
And so I listened to him and kind of was like, yeah, it's kind of like what you're doing and talking about. That's what makes that void in the middle kind of feel better. And then the meditation, I started, getting some CDs and experimenting with, different ones. I started out with the guided meditations because being a type A personality was made it real difficult to sit in a chair.
Mhm.
And I was used to having 10 things going on at the same time, and I still kind of do, but I'm in a better place with it.
Right.
But, learning how to wind that down and to be able to sit quietly and to identify where I was in my day to day. And so it was things like that, just I got the few books that were there, and that just started the journey. And I just kept each piece just felt really good in my heart center. And that's when I started going, okay, I think when this feels good, I'm going in the right direction. And I just
Mm.
kept moving in that direction. And now, years later, that's the work I do, is to help people find that connection in their heart center and start to develop a dialogue with it so that they can move from that center in their life, because it makes all the difference. Because if you're running from your head all the time, you're just running into walls. It's like putting on blinders. You can't see anything. But if you're moving from that heart center, you're going to, get the nudges and the information you need from the
Mhm.
right source to go where you need to go when you need to do it. So even though everybody's saying turn right here, and you get this little nudge that says, no, you want to go left, and your brain goes, no, everybody's going that way, and this way is longer, and gives you all the reasons why you don't go left. And you're like, no, I'm kind of feeling left. And you go left, and you find out that later on, as you're kind of winding your way back onto the road, like say on the freeway, I've had this happen where I think I need to get off here and go a different route. And then later on, when I circle back onto the highway, I find out that there's been an accident and everybody's been sitting in traffic for hours. And here I've
Mm.
gone off and either ate some dinner or took an alternate route, and I'm coming onto the freeway on the other side of the accident. And, it's just amazing stuff like that.
When I was my journey began in 2009, and it started as it started as like me same reason you talked about, where I was doing all the things that we were supposed to do, but things weren't working out the way they had traditionally historically worked out. And there was this like dissatisfaction with the whole overall thing. And so there was a realization that, gosh, some of the stuff that I've been taught to believe just doesn't seem true. And you know, you start to question these things. And then I got into a phase where I was like asking like a lot of advice from a lot of different people. And that got really overwhelming and confusing, because the best someone can do is give you a perspective of what worked for them, but they really can't get inside of you and understand what you need. And I remember there was kind of a moment when I did exactly what you talked about, where like not everybody, but people were saying go right. And I was like, no, I'm going left. And it was kind of a breakthrough, because it was like finally me saying, no, I'm not going to listen to, I'm going to start to listen to what is inside of me. There is something that's speaking to me, but I'm going to actually start to pay attention. And this is a couple years after the journey began. So it wasn't like I initially was even willing to tune into what I needed to tune into. But when I finally started to tune into it, it became a bit easier. It became a lot easier. And yet, you know, here we are 10 years later, and the process continues. I think the difference, though, Gwen, is that, you know, it doesn't take us 3 years to figure out to make a little bit of a left turn instead of a right turn. We become we just have a ability to like hear what turn we're supposed to take. And even though we're not on the right path at any given moment, we don't stay stuck on that for, you know, weeks and months and years like we used to. So anyway, take it from there in terms of any comments or, you know, anything you would like to add, because this is a process. This is a process.
It is process, and all you can do is go one step at a time. Like you said, it's little pieces. You don't fall into it all at once. You know, there's that story of, you know, the guy that walks down the street and he falls in the hole, and he's like, it takes him a little while to figure out where he's at and what's going on. And then the next day he goes down the street, he falls in the hole. He understands where he's at, but he's not quite sure how he's getting there. You know, and then the next time he sees the hole and he still falls in it. And then the next day he sees the hole, he goes around it.
Yeah.
And then on the final day, he just doesn't go down that street.
There you go. Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of, that sums up, you know, the spiritual journey. You know, it's that awareness. It's just pieces of awareness over and over and over, and giving yourself the benefit of that, not judging.
When I went through my journey, I came to a realization that there were beliefs that I had that no longer served me. And I had to essentially, once I opened that can of worms, I had to kind of go and look at almost all of my beliefs, at least. And it was like, I had like one or two beliefs that weren't working. And I said, no, these aren't working. But then like, once you open those two up, you know, there's like things that are all connected to it. How do you help people go through that process? Because that took several years in terms of, you know, that's because you have, you know, for me, it was like 50 years worth of beliefs that I was attempting to unravel. And you start doing it one by one, and you have to think about them. You know, you can't just, you know, anyway. So how do you help people go through that once they reach that point?
You know, that is a big one.
Yeah.
That's a big one, Steve. That's for the 300 level classes.
Okay. All right. Well,
because, you know, if you think about it, beliefs, everything about our existence is based on beliefs, and it goes to your core. It can be from your culture, your country, your life experiences. You've got just layers and layers and layers of beliefs, and it's those beliefs that kind of keep you anchored here, you know, and helps you to make sense. But a lot of times we are taught that those beliefs are like written in stone and can never be changed, right?
right.
And that awareness in and of itself is a huge one, okay? I was, doing some one of the more I say more recent, but it's probably been within the last 15 years. This one the Abraham Hicks material, okay? One of their sentences is, one of their takeaways is, "Thoughts or beliefs are just thoughts you keep thinking."
Hmm.
Okay. Beliefs are just thoughts you keep thinking. And I heard that I don't know how many times. And I'm like, oh, okay. Okay. I'd be nodding. Yeah. All right. Uh-huh. Gotcha. And then one day it hit.
Mm.
It just lit up. And I was like, oh my gosh, beliefs are just thoughts you keep thinking.
Yeah.
I'm like, that was huge. That was a game changer. That's that one spot where you said, Steve, that you go, "Oh, I don't have to keep thinking that thought, or I don't have to keep believing that." And so when you start with you got that aha, and you start to look at some of the beliefs you hold. And again, it goes back to your meditation practice, right? How better to identify your belief system than when you're sitting in meditation and you're face to face with those beliefs and how they work or don't work. Usually we're being faced with how that belief system isn't working for us.
To use your story about the man falling in the hole, the belief might have been that I have to go down this particular street, and yet he had the first fall into the hole a couple of times, finally figure out that he could just avoid the hole by walking around it, and then finally let go of the idea that I don't even need to go down this street. So that's how these beliefs work. They're layered on top of each other. So yeah, it's a challenge.
Yeah, and that's a big one. Like I said, that's kind of a big ticket item when you can get to a place where you go, ooh, I don't really have to hold that belief anymore. And then as you start to look more and more at the beliefs you hold, you start to realize that, yeah, beliefs are what kind of hold everything together. So it's not like you're going to get rid of them. You're just changing them, changing where you're at. And you'll know when you've changed those actual belief systems, because everything in your life will change.
Mm.
It's like just it lights a spark. So if you lose, um, I'll give an example. I heard a comedian talk years back, okay, and he was talking on spirituality, and he was saying how when he first started out, how it was really hard because he was gay. And this was way back when that was a problem, a bigger problem. Let's say that it was a bigger problem. And he said that, people hated him. It was terrible. They just really had an issue with his being gay. And he said at some point, he had that epiphany that maybe if I change the way I think about
Mm.
this, I can change the way people come at me. So he stopped always believing that people didn't like him because he was gay. And he said, you know what? People embrace me because I am that. And
Mm.
he started changing up that thought. And once he really started to own that, he said, the crowd started getting bigger. People were laughing more. They loved him. And he said nothing had changed other than his thoughts on the process, which were his beliefs. He was holding on to those. Those were beliefs. And so when we look at those kind of beliefs that we hold, we change that perspective, and our outside world has to respond.
Yeah, it's the beliefs are so foundational, and as I look back on my own journey, it was a mess because, like I said, you open up that can of worms, and all of a sudden it's like everything has to be examined, not just one thing. But you go through the process and you start like excavating, and you go, well, this one can stay, this one can go. And turns out I've never actually like written it down or analyzed it specifically, but it seems like instinctively that probably half the beliefs that I had carried with me, just are ones that I've replaced. And, and yet some of the beliefs were good ones and had like the foundation and were, but even those, you can't just assume that those are going to keep, you have to look at them and go deeper. So anyway, in your practice, do you work with people on that? Let's bring it up to the current situation. A client comes to you, what do you, and of course it's going to depend on each individual person and where they're at in their own journey, but like what's, what are kind of some of the things that you like to do? And maybe the way to start out is the meditation, because you're really known for that and helping people establish a meditation practice. So.
Yeah, because it's foundational, really. I mean, when else can you sit, other than a pandemic, sit with yourself and really examine who you are? And we're not talking having to, dig up your past, and we're not talking about, the psychotherapy kind of stuff. We're talking just sitting down and going, what's going on right now in my life? And am I happy or not happy with it? And so, yeah, meditation is key. Journaling is my next one, because a lot of times as soon as people do commit to the meditation, and guided meditation really is good for getting you started, because it gives you a distraction and it'll keep you in the scene. But ultimately, as you do your practice, there's a bunch of different meditations. And once you get to mindful meditation, which is the one where you're just sitting with your head and you're just listening to what's going on in there, that is when the busyness really starts up and people are like, oh, I can't, it doesn't stop. And that's when I say, get out your journal. Because once you start to journal, it's going to quiet things down. Your mind just wants to be heard. So once you start writing everything and anything that is coming out of it at that moment, don't worry about punctuation. Don't worry about grammar. You're just listening and writing and hearing what plays in your head all day long. Okay. And that's where you start seeing those beliefs, right?
Right.
You start writing everything out and you can kind of see it right there. And a lot of times people will be like, oh, but Gwen, once you write it, isn't that a bad thing? No, it's playing in your head. That's the problem.
Right.
The problem's at.
And it's on an endless loop. It just keeps going over and over and over again.
And it's because it's not being heard. Okay. It's because you haven't heard it out. So once you sit down and you write those thoughts out, and I'm talking hear the whole thought out, because a lot of thoughts we cut off and go, no, can't go there right now. Can't go there right now. So you're stuffing. And then ultimately it explodes on you and you're like, oh, I can't believe this. And then you start stuffing again. Journaling helps unstuff that. You get to see it. You get to purge some things. You get to say, oh, well, maybe this is what I need to work on. And, oh, how long have I held on to that one? And that type of thing. So then the journaling, and then I usually segue into learning how to use your emotions, because your emotions are really key. That was the big one for me, in the spiritual journey. And that's what got me to the Abraham Hicks material. Is I was like, what is missing here? There is a piece that is missing, and I can't seem to put my finger on it. And what it was the emotional component, that the emotions are really your indicator to where you're at between head and heart, because head is always going to be an untrained head, okay, where it's been fed our culture's fear, doom and gloom, and all that stuff, right? So that's head energy, and that's what it's going to feel like, is very fearful, sad, angry, all those energies. Where your heart, where your soul is, love, peace, and joy. And once you start to look at your life from where am I emotionally with this topic, then lets you know, am I in my head or am I in my heart? Because if I'm in my head, this isn't going to go anywhere. If it's in my heart, I know I'm moving in the right direction, because again, that soul is where the direction's coming from, right? The divine wisdom is coming from there. And if you want to be zigging and zagging when you need to, that's where you want to be. So it needs to be good feeling stuff. And I'm not talking sticking a smiley face on anything. Okay. Do you see where I went there with the Forrest Gump smiley?
Yes. See, another lesson from the movie.
So it's not about sticking a smiley face on stuff. It's about really, and then it goes back to the meditation and journaling.
Yeah.
If I've got this going on here and I'm not feeling good about it, what can I do? And then that's where my other classes and things start to kick in for people. If they get to that point, then I start to give them tools of how to shift it. How do you shift out of there, and how do you stay focused, and how do you like the different gurus say, when they're asked, do you meditate? And they go, no, my life is a meditation. And that's what they're talking about. They're living from that heart center all the time.
This is helping me understand some of the pieces that I went through in my own development. And I had some coaches and mentors that were helping me, but we can look back now 10 years behind in the rearview mirror and sort of see things in a way that we didn't see them while it was going on. Journaling was critically important for me those first 5 years. Less so today, but still, it's still part of what I do. It just sort of comes out in a little different format. But at the beginning, I was just writing down everything. And I remember somebody who I had taken influence from, talked about the phrase was just throwing up on the paper. In other words, just let everything come out, no filter. And then as I started publicly blogging at that same time. So now that was different than journaling, because now I was beginning to redefine what my thoughts really were. And I came across a James Michener quote, he said, I never know what I think about something until I read what I wrote about it. And that became my therapy, or my process for understanding what my thoughts were. So my public blogs were really like my thoughts. And I learned how to kind of do a download of source energy and just get something there. And then I would put the thinking brain on and I would edit it, and I would really but at some point you hit publish and it's out there. And I would always go and look at what I had written, and now that it was appeared publicly on the blog, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, do I really believe this? And in a few cases, I might have to go back and do an edit or two to it. But for the most part, it was like the process was done. And then that became the new beliefs that I had. So, and then fast forward to a couple years ago, I rediscovered Abraham Hicks. I had discovered him originally back, Esther and Jerry and Abraham, back in around that 2010 timeframe. But I guess it was, and this is just speculation on my part, I'm guessing that I just wasn't ready for it. I just couldn't, I had too much other stuff going on. And, but I rediscovered it a couple of years ago. And I was like, oh, I remember this. Oh, this is good stuff. And I started listening again, and I've become quite a student the last few years and practitioner of it. And you touched on the idea that you hear something that you've heard a bunch of times before. And this happens when I'm listening to Abraham Hicks material all the time, because I've now, I'm getting into a more advanced depth with it. It's like, I'll hear something and you know exactly what they're going to say, but all of a sudden it means something different. So that aha moment. Yeah.
I couldn't have said it better myself. But yeah, it is. It's all of that, and each piece of those, yeah, and it doesn't necessarily go in exactly that order, like you said. For some people, it'll be flipped, but it is ultimately each of those pieces, new ahas, moving through a new thing. And me too. The Abraham Hicks stuff, when it came in at a time when I was asking new questions. I started to read it. It is powerful stuff. I picked it up. It took me a few years to actually read the Ask and Is Given book. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really dating myself with that one, because that was like their new book out. So I had their Ask and Is Given, and I took 3 runs at it to read it. Over a course of a couple years. And by the 3rd time, I was like, I am sitting my butt down and reading this. And I think the first 2 times it was because as I started reading it, like, it was funny when you said, I think it was because I was too busy or something. For me, it was because I'd start to read it and I could just see and feel my world just kind of coming undone as I was reading it. And I'd be like, oh, I don't know what this book's doing, but I don't think I can read it right now. And so that's why it took me 3 times. And on that one, I sat down and I just said, I'm doing this front to back. And I read it and I was like, okay, game changer. This is a game changer. And a lot of my work is based out of that book, because that book is so amazing. But you do have to have some groundwork. You have to have some commitment to it. You have to be open to hearing, because it's talking on a whole different level. It's talking to the person who is seeing the hole and is trying to walk around it and keeps kind of falling in it. I would probably put it in that group. Okay. And, because they have wonderful answers. They're right to the nitty gritty. It's very high level information.
Mm-hmm.
It's living, I like to call it living words. The Bible's got living words in it too, where it doesn't matter where you are on your journey. You can pick it up and read it, and it's always going to take you to another level. You'll always understand it from a new perspective every time you pick it up, because those are heart-centered words. They're divine wisdom. That, your blog, the way you described how you do your blog, that's you flowing divine wisdom out to the people. So yeah, beautiful.
The one last thing about Abraham Hicks material, it was a few months ago when I went, like, the aha moment was, okay, the art of allowing, the allowing part. I was like, I have not learned how to be a very good allower. So, all of a sudden that became like kind of a focal point as I listened to the material, let's really dig deep on that one particular piece of it. And anyway, it was just beautiful, because it just, there's these different things that, will be there for when you're ready. So that helps a lot to know that you're, a big law of attraction fan and teacher. And that's probably, an important piece of it in terms of insights and illuminations, in terms of what you provide with people, that methodology.
Yeah, my Monday night group, I've had it's an Art of Allowing group, and the Art of Allowing group, probably 15 years now, and it's always got a new flow of people in and out. We just had a gentleman show up who used to come. He's like, Gwen, I remember when we used to, and I said, I haven't done that in probably 8-10 years. And he's like, I think that's the last time I was here. So people flow in and out based on where they're at and what they need to hear and what support. And he shared just amazing and aha moments of what he's accomplished in that time, and where he's at in his life. He had us all crying. It was just so heartfelt. And so yeah, the art of allowing work, you said even the law of attraction, being a fan of the law of attraction or however you worded it. And students, when they are into their spiritual practice, that is the law. When you start learning that law, you're like, oh, that is incredible because it's a universal law. Okay,
Yeah.
it supersedes anything physical because it is what really puts into perspective how the energy of everything works.
Mm.
And the law of attraction is in itself quite the study because it's not just, oh, like attracts like. There's a deeper part to the law of attraction that I think a lot of people sometimes miss in that. So
So, in your journey, you were doing this work for the roughly 25 years, where you started on yourself, and then you started helping others figure this out, and then the Spiritual Communities Network came along when you expanded, and we talked about that the last time, the first time we interviewed and spoke here. So we don't want to go through that again, but how. The one question I'll ask is, how did that enhance what you're doing on an individual level by having this group and bigger community to
that's a loaded gun.
yeah. Or
That's
maybe it distracted you.
you want to talk about that destiny thing.
There you go. That was your destiny.
Sometimes you got to watch what you ask for. Um, Yeah, so got my spiritual practice down. I'm really starting to feel good about things. I'm starting to have, people are talking to me. I remember when The Secret came out,
Mm.
and my friends would call and they'd say, Gwen, have you read The Secret? And I'm like, no. And they're like, it's this new book that's out. And I'm like, oh, what's it about? And they're like, all that stuff you talk about. So I had my practice, and I had people coming to me and asking questions. So that was starting to evolve. And just kept hearing community, community. I just kept
Mm.
like, what is this? And the next thing I knew, I would just follow these nudges and nudges of this and that. And then one day it was bringing in this spiritual community program, anchoring in spiritual community consciousness. And I was just like, are you kidding me? So you talk about destiny, because I know that's my heart's calling, and I know that's where that was my soul's intention. That was my destiny. But I'll tell you, that's so far from where Gwen Peterson, who
Mm.
was sitting in the car going, what is this all about? And why am I not happy? And that lady sitting there had no idea what was coming
Mm.
down the pike if she was gonna develop her spirit, that connection and start to really follow a heart-led life. And I still there's things that it's still creating, still making things, still moving stuff, and I still just kinda go, "Really?" So, when sometimes people are like, what's my life's purpose?" It's like, that's a really loaded question because you really don't know and you really don't wanna know. Because some things are so big that that your soul can only give it to you in pieces and you can only work on in pieces. And if you knew where you were gonna be at the end of the road, you'd as a person, you'd be like, screw that. I'm
Yeah.
not doing any of that. I want all this stuff over here. But your soul came in with a purpose, and that was to have fun and to play in third dimension and to wrangle in the personality that is your body and mind, wrangle it in and steer it in a direction. And that's the game. That's the game. And having fun at it too. Just because you're doing your soul's purpose doesn't mean you're not going to enjoy it. You're going to enjoy it. You might not understand it or figure out why why your soul thought that was a good idea. but
So the as we wrap up here, the message from Mama Gump was good. Ultimately, you have to figure it out yourself, but you don't have to, figure it out yourself without having guides and coaches and people that can help. And really, the Spiritual Communities Network is that whole collection of different people. And the beautiful thing about it is that a person can get involved, and they can see many different people who have similar ideas, but they have specific ways that they go about it. So you don't have to, subscribe to one particular person's philosophy or design. And, you can choose and figure out who works, best for you or who you need. And the other thing that I realized in my journey is that I usually learn one really important thing from people, and I don't learn 10 really important things from one person. I learned one important thing from a person. So the beautiful thing about your community is that you can learn something from someone, and then it's not like you don't, it's not like you can't learn anything more from that person, but the most important piece of what you needed to learn, you learned, and then you go and learn another important piece from someone else. And you like your friend who cycled back after 8 years into the art of allowing Monday night class, you come back and you relearn it, but you relearn it at a different level and a deeper level. So I think that's the beauty of the community that you've created.
Thank you. Well said, Steve. Yeah. Between my own personal work and the work of all the members of Spiritual Communities Network, that is the purpose, is to be there and be available for whatever that step is. I think most teachers who are worth anything will say, I can't be all things to you. And our Art of Allowing group, we talk about not just the Abraham Hicks material, but a number of different teachers. Because like you said, each one has a piece, like Louise Hay, Byron Katie. They have amazing work that you don't need to reinvent the wheel on. You don't need to reinvent that wheel. And you take it, you process it, you assimilate it, and then you regurgitate it.
Yeah.
The way that works for you.
Yeah. And after you hear them say the same thing 25 times, it suddenly means something that it never meant, even though you knew the words, you knew it was coming, and suddenly it magically connects with you. So, well, this has been fun. And to anybody in the Spiritual Communities Network that's listening to Gwen and I talk, I am a new member. I just joined, but I've been doing this broadcast for about 10 months, and I've been doing my own soul's journey for 10 years and working with this. So when I started the broadcast back in August, I said, I'm not a spiritual teacher, and yet I've been on this own journey of it. And what I said at that moment was, I said, I just want to talk to the people who are the teachers and the wisdom people, and learn from them and let them shine and share, their wisdom. And so anyway, I feel like this is kind of my purpose, or my destiny, is to be able to spotlight people who are doing this work, because I still feel like a student in much of this myself. I don't feel like I don't have a course per se, and I'm not looking to build a specific community as much as I just really enjoy the conversation with the different experts like yourself. So I'm excited to be part of your group. Thank you, Gwen.
Well, you know what? We're all students.
Yeah.
As long as we're in this physical body, we're still students. And I am excited that we're going to be able to see more of you and what you can bring out of our membership, and to showcase, more of what spirituality is, and what the American Gumption is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good.
We're
I have 6 more questions, but we're out of time, so we better not ask any more now. We'll have to have you back again, but I just wanted to at least let just wanted to thank you for allowing me to be part of the group, and hopefully I'll be able to get to know the different people in your group as time goes on. I know you have a lot of regular programs, so I don't have that website listed, Spiritual Communities Network, but I'm sure if you go to Gwen's website, Insights and Illuminations, there are links directly there too. So in the meantime, this was all about Insights and Illuminations and your journey. Thank you so much, Gwen, for joining us today.
Thank you, Steve.
All righty. Wow. So that was fun. We went the full hour, and we got to hear Gwen's story of how this all, what she's doing and how she's helping. And I didn't expect or know that it was going to turn into, kind of a great conversation on some of those topics that we got into. And it was helpful in terms of looking back at my own journey. And so I think that's the beauty of these conversations, is that you just keep learning, you keep growing, and everybody brings a slightly different perspective. So thank you, Gwen, for joining us. All righty. Well, that's it. We're going to close out this week. I will not be here on Monday, but I'll be here Tuesday through Friday next week. And we'll see you then. Have a great weekend, everybody.